Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Last time I talked about hell, I shared some of my favorite depictions. And thanks to the great suggestions in the comments, I discovered some more fantastic pieces of media. So this video will be a part 2. I will cover some more of my favorites, as well as some of the recommendations I got last time. Keep in mind that I will be spoiling every title I talk about, and let's get into it. As Above, So Below is a 2014 found footage film that follows a group of explorers who visit the catacombs of Paris in search of the infamous Philosopher's Stone. But as they venture deeper, they encounter twisted versions of their own traumas and sins, with the passages turning into hell, more specifically Dante's 9 Circles. This was a popular recommendation on the last video, and I actually remembered that I did watch this one already. In fact, I believe this was the first proper horror movie I ever saw, around 2016. I remember I was so terrified of getting jump scared that I covered my eyes for most of the good stuff. So this one deserved a proper rewatch for this video. So the group goes into the catacombs, and although not every circle of hell is explicitly shown, for most scenes you can tell which circle they represent. First, they are of course in limbo. The first really supernatural thing that happens is when they reach a crossroads and the main girl wants to go through a cursed path that apparently nobody comes back from, and the tour guide wants to take the safe path, which is what they do. However, they somehow end up back at the crossroads, meaning space already isn't acting like it should. This is when the visions of everyone's past traumas start. The main girl lost her dad, so she sees a phone that he called her on, and one of the guys lost his brother, so he sees the same piano they used to play as kids. They also meet Latop, an old friend that got lost in the catacombs a while ago, but he's different now, letting us know that hell took him in. So they go deeper in search of the stone, and they actually find it in a room filled with treasure, meaning they reached greed, the fourth circle. The side characters start breaking down a wall to reach the biggest prize, and this causes the entire room to collapse. Left with no other option but to go even deeper, they finally reach a passage that says, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." And we know what that means. These are the words written on the entrance to hell. So here is where we see the last 3 circles, sort of combined. Inside, everything they just passed is repeated, except it is now upside down. Everything is flipped. One of the first things that happens here is Latop is back, and he bashes one of the girls' heads into the ground. This is representative of the 7th circle, violence. The supernatural stuff is also a lot more prominent now. The visions get more intense, and they are now actually harmful. The tour guide of the group sees a burning car, which is his past trauma, and he's swallowed into the floor, left with his legs sticking out, an explicit reference to Inferno. As they go deeper, there are demons in the walls, and an ominous hooded figure with a chair that I imagine is Satan. But interestingly enough, he doesn't seem to be too bothered that the group is here. He definitely sees them, but he doesn't react. I found this interesting, and I realized that this is the only movie I saw that takes place in hell, but the characters aren't actually meant to be there. They just manage to find the passage. And instead of them just being trapped here forever, they get the chance to redeem themselves, which is what they end up doing. And this is why the tour guide got swallowed into the floor when confronted with his sin, because he didn't rectify properly. What I like about this hell is that it's a good combination of classical stuff like demons and the 9 circles, but it is also very personalized to the characters. Everyone sees their biggest issues or sins that they need to rectify in order to be able to escape. What Dreams May Come follows Chris Nielsen, who dies tragically in an accident and first finds himself in a beautiful heaven crafted by his memories and art pieces, featuring his wife's paintings. But Chris misses his children, who died a few years ago, and his wife, who is still alive but struggling to get through life by herself. Chris is first guided by Albert, whose job is to guide lost souls who can't find their way to heaven. Albert explains the rules to Chris, how heaven is what you imagine it to be, and when you share it with somebody, both people have control over what goes on. As Chris explores, he is also guided by Leon, who shows him to her own heaven. So essentially, heaven here works like co-op in video games. Leone soon turns out to be Chris's daughter, and Albert later turns out to be his son. This transformation of appearance is explained as the characters liberating themselves from any relationships. So the father and his children are the same age, and they are kinda equal in heaven. Nobody has authority over another as they did on Earth. However, due to her grief, Chris's wife Annie— oh, what have we here? But yeah, his wife Annie tragically commits suicide and gets herself in hell. Albert explains that Chris can never save her, which does bring up an interesting topic. Why do suicides end up in hell? And so Chris goes on an impossible journey through the afterlife's dark realms to save her. Him, Albert, and an old guy depart on a boat through stormy waters filled with lost souls, who manage to actually tip the boat over. The main characters wash ashore in what seems to be limbo. This barren wasteland is filled with shipwrecks, one of which is named Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld. There are some people here, and they live in some kinds of post-apocalyptic settlement, almost starting a confrontation with the main characters. So they get on an elevator, which interestingly enough goes up, and finally they reach hell. It is an unsettling area. The ground is filled with faces in despair, and Chris has to step over them to keep going. He sees his wife, but the ground collapses just as he is about to reach her. He drops in a large open area, and in the middle is a house, where his wife is, trapped in her own mind. She can't remember him at first, but eventually she does, and they live happily ever after. In fact, they even resurrect. I have to say, this one is very sad, but at the same time visually beautiful, both in the light and joyful as in the dark and depressing. In fact, it's probably my favorite movie from this bunch in terms of classically depicting hell as well as heaven. This movie tells us that the afterlife is what you make of it. Chris created his heaven through beautiful artworks because he died fairly content. And Annie ended up in a much darker place because that is where she was emotionally when she died, filled with depression and regret. Event Horizon is a sci-fi horror film that explores hell in a cosmic, psychological way. The story follows a rescue crew sent to investigate the reappearance of the Event Horizon, a spaceship that vanished without a trace. Also, the ship runs on this black hole contraption, and it reminded me of those biblically accurate angels. As they search the ship, they start experiencing nightmarish visions that come in quick flashes, each one a manifestation of their own fears and traumas, similar to As Above, So Below. The movie plays on the idea that the Event Horizon didn't just disappear, it crossed into another dimension, a place outside comprehension. This dimension, which the crew realizes is akin to hell, isn't just scary because it looks terrifying. Instead, it becomes hell because it forces people to face their worst memories and guilts over and over again, as if the ship itself is alive and feeding on their suffering. One of the best parts is when they watch a video log from the original crew, revealing disturbing scenes of their descent into madness. And this is when they understand what kind of hell they're dealing with. It's both psychological and existential, reflecting not only fear, but the darkness within human nature. Stay is a psychological thriller that follows a troubled art student named Henry with visions of his own death, who intends to end his life on his 21st birthday. His psychiatrist becomes deeply involved in the case, trying to prevent the suicide, only to find himself spiraling into a fractured reality. So it turns out that the whole plot is happening within Henry's mind during his final moments after a car crash. And all the characters, including the psychiatrist, are the people who surrounded him and tried to help. So this one is similar to Jacob's Ladder from my previous video, but instead of the dying person being the focus, the psychiatrist is this movie's main character and is trying to figure out what's going on. But nothing makes sense because this version of him only exists in Henry's deteriorating imagination. And just like Angel Heart from my first video, I do believe this one needs 2 watches. Because once you realize that this is all the student's world created from desperation and fear, everything becomes clear. Except the fact that after he dies, the psychiatrist in real life gets some visions that Henry was having. I'm not too sure what to make of that. Maybe in Henry's last breath he was able to transmit these somehow. Another thing that I loved about this movie are the insanely trippy transitions that really show how fragile the logic is in this hell. In the Twilight Zone episode, A Nice Place to Visit, we follow a small-time crook named Rocky who finds himself in an afterlife he first believes is heaven. After being killed in a robbery gone wrong, he wakes up in a lavish, endless paradise where he has everything he ever wanted: money, women, and winning bets. His guide, a mysterious man named Pip, grants him every wish without question, making Rocky believe he's finally gotten his reward. But as time passes, Rocky starts feeling trapped. The pleasure and abundance begin to feel meaningless because there's no risk or challenge. Every game he plays, he wins. Every desire he has is immediately fulfilled, leaving no room for excitement or satisfaction. He realizes that what he thought was paradise is actually hell, an eternity of hollow fulfillment without the thrill or struggle he craved in life. This is an interesting depiction. It reminds me of how in a video game, when you unlock everything, it's no longer fun to play. There is nothing to work towards. But this makes me think what a personal heaven would have to be then. Because it does make sense that if every wish is granted, stuff gets boring pretty quickly. So I wonder if heaven would need to be challenging to some extent. Perhaps it would have to be a place where hard work is rewarded, so these achievements don't feel undeserved. Before I talk about Berserk, I have to say that it is my favorite manga of all time. In fact, it's the only one I read all the way through because of how perfect it was for me. Everything from the characters to the monster design is just excellent, and I could make 10 videos just on topics explored in this story. But now we will focus on the hell in Berserk, by which I am mainly referring to the eclipse and its aftermath. In Berserk, the concept of hell is embodied by the deepest layers of the astral world. A mystical dimension that encompasses everything from familiar mythological creatures to unimaginable horrors. The astral world is vast and intricate, beginning with shallow layers where creatures like elves, trolls, and spirits dwell, beings that once filled human dreams and fantasies. However, as one goes deeper, the realm becomes increasingly hostile and alien, with the deepest layers being the divine domain and the abyss. The divine domain is an abstract environment where the God Hand lives. These are the most powerful entities in this universe. And the abyss is a churning mass of collective consciousness and malice. This is the explicit hell in this universe. It is the farthest depth of the astral world, where most beings, bound by their ego, cannot descend without losing their sense of self. This place is home to the idea of evil, a swirling mass of souls embodying humanity's darkest collective consciousness. So the event known as the eclipse is jump-started when Griffith, who everyone considered a friend up to this point, activates a magical device known as a Crimson Bailet, which gives him great power, but he has to sacrifice everyone he loves, this being his crew, the Band of the Hawk. During this event, the physical world merges with the deepest levels of the astral world in a blood-red landscape filled with nasty, otherworldly horrors. This is when the plot takes a completely new direction and everything changes, and Guts, the protagonist, is thrust into a world where friends are betrayed, trust is shattered, and survival becomes a near impossible task. The Apostles, former humans who sacrificed loved ones for power, are both grotesque and tragic, telling us that this hell is born from choice, ambition, and despair. In the eclipse, which the Apostles refer to as the Feast, nearly every member of the Band of the Hawk is brutally killed, and some unfortunately suffer even worse fates. What makes Berserk's hell unique is that it's not confined to this astral world. Guts' life, after barely surviving the eclipse, becomes a living hell. Haunted by demons night after night, he's forced to confront both literal monsters and the psychological scars left by betrayal and loss. The brand of sacrifice on his neck draws these demons to him, making every night a battle. In this universe, hell is not a place you can leave, it follows you, staining every attempt at peace or redemption with a reminder of suffering. Each encounter with the Apostles or glimpses of the God Hand reminds us that in Berserk, hell is both an external force and an internal torment, where there is little hope and survival is the only form of defiance left. The hell in Chainsaw Man is a strange concept. And although it doesn't get too much screen time, the stuff we do get to see is very interesting. So in Chainsaw Man, there are devils, and hell is where they come from. There exists a devil in hell for everything people fear: guns, bats, chainsaws, and so on. And once a devil is killed in hell, it goes to Earth. And when it dies on Earth, it goes back to hell, in a never-ending cycle. But there also exist primal fears, devils who have never been killed in hell because they are too powerful. So the Hell Devil, who was created because of people's fear of hell, is how you get there. In chapter 63, 3 children are sacrificed and the Hell Devil teleports the main characters into hell. And at first glance, it looks like a pretty regular environment. But the sky is filled with doors. Soon one of these doors opens and something hits the floor. Suddenly, there are a bunch of astronauts split in half, as if praying or showing respect to the looming figure in the back. And this is the Darkness Devil, the embodiment of the fear of the dark. A frog says something, and then suddenly everyone's limbs are severed, floating in the air. And here is where we get to see the Darkness Devil up close. It has a bunch of heads with different faces, too many limbs, and dark, sprawling wings. The characters try their best to defeat this thing, but it is just too powerful, able to erase and contort parts of bodies at ease. It is also able to just stare at somebody intensely and make them bleed. Eventually Makima, who is very powerful, comes and saves the characters from hell, but even she struggles to pull this off. There are some more parts that take place in hell, but I think that this was the best sequence, really showing how unique it is in this universe. I also love how the devils work here, and how the more people fear something, the more powerful that devil is. So it's no wonder that the Darkness Devil is so incredibly powerful. Everyone was afraid of the dark at some point. Chainsaw Man's hell is great because it pushes the boundaries of what fear can create, making it a place as intriguing as it is terrifying. A realm where nobody is safe, and even the most powerful characters become vulnerable. As always, thank you for watching. College has been a little demanding recently, so I didn't get to watch or read all the stuff from the suggestions, but I might make another video. Some of the stuff that caught my eye that I didn't get through yet is Jigoku, Mad God, and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Also, there were comments about the Silent Hill video game series, which is apparently inspired by Jacob's Ladder and Angel Heart, so that one is high on my list too. So yeah, let me know if I should make another one of these, or if you have any other suggestions that you want to see on here, feel free to write them down in the comments. Until next time.